All right, good day, and welcome to Deep Tech Gaming, where we explore the newest trends in game development through the lens of up and coming studios in the space. So today I'm joined by Michael Wagner. He's the CEO of Automata, the core studio behind the upcoming space themed grand strategy open world MMO Star Atlas. Star Atlas has a big focus on economic and political strategy, and that's complemented by new technologies like blockchain. And they've been some of the foremost leaders in the space on experimenting with what that means. So we're very excited to have Michael on today to explore the Star Atlas universe and some of the new innovations that they're inventing to support it. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
That was a great introduction, Sam. Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. All right. Well, just getting right into it, can you give us a very quick, 30-second intro of yourself, high level of Star Atlas?
30 seconds. I've been in the crypto space for about 10 years now. I come from a traditional finance background, have a great team of experts in game development with me as co-founders at Automata. Yeah, and we conceptualized this project in mid 2020, kicked off, debuted with a white paper and a dream in 2021. It's been a phenomenal success story, not without its ups and downs and challenges along the way, but the game itself, I think you covered at a high level, but it is grand strategy, space exploration, territory control. It's a massively multiplayer online game being developed in Unreal Engine 5, and we're really, I think, leading the charge in next generation game development, not only because of the technical implementations that we have leveraging blockchain, but also, if you look at any of the visuals that we've produced, it's really bleeding edge game tech that we're rolling out as well. So very exciting.
Yeah, I think that first trailer is still, like one of the most mind-blowing things that people have seen in the space in a long time. And your website too. I'm familiar with the designers who did that. And they did an absolutely phenomenal job on that as well. Okay, and then briefly, on the status of the project, where are you guys at? When are you deploying? What does that kind of look like?
I would still consider us fairly early stage, right? Because when we kicked off, we had really just the co-founding group. We had 4 people on the team in January of 2021, and we've grown quite substantially over the last 2.5 years, which does include some co-creation studios that we contract work with, but all of the game direction, the art direction, that's all in-house, and the game design itself is entirely in-house, and we do outsource to an extent some of the actual responsibilities, but we have a very close relationship with these co-creation studios. Always like to add that caveat in there, though, but we have about 200 people on the team. Took some time to grow to there, but the game state itself, while it's still more in a tech demo format, we do have a philosophy internally of releasing iteratively, so producing modules that players can engage in, and we can constantly improve upon those as well as bring out new features. The game is currently in closed access pre-alpha, available on Epic Game Store. This is actually a pretty big win for us. The Web3 space is still quite new, especially with AAA gaming, and we were the second company and project in the world to have a listing on the Epic Game Store. So for us, that was a pretty big accomplishment. But it is accessible through game access keys right now, but we're actually looking to go fully public a little bit later in this year, probably Q3 of this year, having full open access to that. So as it stands today, it is a module that we call the showroom. And so when you log into the client, you will connect a crypto wallet. This is another one of the innovations that we've brought to the space, is developing out a software development kit, something that we call the Foundation SDK, that allows direct connection to the Solana blockchain while interacting with the game client itself. So if you're signing a transaction, or you're interacting with the market, or if we need to determine which assets do you own and hold in your wallet, all of that is done directly inside Unreal Engine, which this SDK, by the way, is completely open source, and we are looking at avenues of expanding our reach in terms of interoperability with and partnerships and collaborations with other mainstream studios. But as you enter into the showroom, there's a couple of things you can do, starting with your character configuration and customization. Of course, you can load any of the ship models that we have available. You can load those into the engine. Some of these are fully polished and finished with SFX, VFX, everything on it. Some of them will be clay models still, so they don't have all of the textures on it. Some of them are not flyable, some of them are flyable, but the idea was to create a beautiful cinematic environment that people could at least enter into, load the assets they have, and then there's really, as of today, two core gameplay mechanics. So that is a time trial racing course where you can take your ship, an X4, and fly that around the course. We have leaderboards. People have been competing on these leaderboards now for the last couple of months. And then we also have a PvE arena where you can load your ship and engage in combat, test your skills against AI for now.
Very cool. And with respect to users, are those numbers public? Can you share with us, how many people are on a wait list? How many people are using it? Are any of those available?
I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but I believe we have over 10,000 people right now that have wishlisted Star Atlas on Epic Game Store. We've
Awesome.
seen a couple thousand people in and out of the showroom. We understand fully that until we can get things like progression in the game and some persistence and desire to play and repetitive gameplay loops, or repeatable gameplay loops, I should say, um, we don't have a ton of daily concurrent users, but we really do think that's going to change by the end of the year. I can give you some more solid numbers on our browser-based game. I don't want
Yeah,
to take
sure.
us off
No,
on
that's
too
okay.
too
Anything
far.
that's relevant, hit me. No.
Yeah, I don't want to take us on too far of a tangent, but I mean, one thing that's important to understand about Automata is that we are building across multiple environments. Our flagship is Unreal Engine, and a lot of our energy, a lot of our calories get spent there. But we have a browser-based implementation of Star Atlas as well, and this is more of a real-time strategy, top-down, asymmetric view gameplay modal that does focus on territory control and combat, wherein the players are um, navigating three different factions and zones on the map, and they are gathering resources, constructing star bases, and defending those star bases against other players. So it's a constant a battle of who has more territory on the board. We just rolled out one of our innovative feature tests for that, which consists of a Cartesian coordinate and on-chain movement system. And I do think it's important that we get into, why are we building on the blockchain. But in the case of Automata, our philosophy is that we should develop as much of the game logic execution to live on the blockchain as possible, and not necessarily completely in a traditional game engine like Unreal or like Unity or like Play Canvas, which is what we use for the browser. There's enormous benefits to this, and again, I think we'll get into it, but so we rolled out a movement test that we gamified through in the form of a kind of a scavenger hunt with loot distributed throughout the board. And as users are pointing and clicking and signing transactions and scanning these sectors, they have a chance of discovering some free loot, which, by the way, I will add, there's something like $600,000 in loot on the board. So if anyone's listening in, it's a free opportunity to come in and get yourself a ship that you can play in Star Atlas at some point in the future. But on that, we've seen over 7,000 unique wallet connects, and I'm using a lot of crypto terminology, but the wallet connections to us, that is your account. You connect a wallet. You don't have to, sign up and provide an email address. It's simply a wallet connection. So over 6 or 7,000 unique wallet connections. We've done 20 million on-chain transactions on Solana. We make up about 3% of the daily transaction volume of Solana presently, and at peak it was 8.5% during a surge event that we ran. So to us, these are all really impressive numbers, and we think it's really only the sky's the limit from here, given this is just a simple test of what we're doing, and all of the core game mechanics are coming out in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and that's a good segue because look, I'm a big fan of people who are trying to deploy things with the hardest tech around just to experiment. I think you guys are definitely in that direction. And speaking of the core game mechanics, dive into the loop a little bit if you could. What's the core fantasy for a player as they step in the first time into the Star Atlas world? What are they looking to capture? What are they looking to achieve? How does all that tie back into the big core fantasy here?
Well, let me separate the two core environments. So in Unreal Engine, we get compared a lot to a Star Citizen, but this is the Deep Space Explorer. And there are 28 different career paths that you can take, which include things like going out and doing data running and gathering information around coordinates and sectors that you can then turn around and maybe sell to other players or use to your own advantage. You can go out and engage in combat with other players across the different risk zones. There's a safe zone, a medium risk zone, and a deep space high risk zone that you can engage in. Um, You can be a politician in the game. So you never have to leave the space station if you really care about diplomacy and how these territories are controlled. You can be a CEO, and otherwise you can be a resource extractor, a miner, and a crafter, or you can be industrious. You can be a freighter or a hauler of materials. We built a game. You mentioned the emphasis on economics, but we've built the game to function in many ways like the real world operates, in that these supply chains need participants to actually transport materials around, and there's time constraints with all of this, as well as expenses in terms of resources consumed as you play. You're burning fuel, your fleet and your crew members are consuming food, things like this. So it's important for the player that's engaging to be able to appropriately manage their operations based on the scale of that operation. But there's really limitless things that you can do, and of course there will be the what we believe will be quite exciting PvP engagements, a lot of deep space combat going on to capture these territories and
And
defend regions.
what I assume that there's going to be elements of player risk obviously folded into that, given that you guys are going to be, deploying tokens, NFTs, etc. Can you speak to that part of the tech implementation? Right. What should players be expecting in that regard?
Well, I guess just so I understand the question, there's a couple of layers of risk. First, there's the technology risk itself, and so that is something that we've put significant emphasis on, is helping to protect our user base to the fullest extent possible. And given I have been in this space for a long time, I know just how rampant fraud and scamming is here. So, we try to educate first and foremost on best practices of interacting with the crypto space. And that's everything from setting up a wallet and storing a seed phrase, encouraging the use of cold storage through hardware wallets. But otherwise, specifically with all of the programs that we're building and the complexity of all of those, we partnered with Kudelski quite early on for comprehensive cybersecurity threat analysis, as well as auditing of all of our on-chain programs. So everything we do not only goes through our first internal testing, our own internal audit, it goes out to Kudelski. We get final sign off on that. And then our approach is actually to roll that out on testnet. So that there's different kind of sub networks of a blockchain that you can interact with. Solana has the mainnet. They have mainnet beta. They have devnet and they have testnet. We roll out to testnet where no real assets are actually used or at risk. Once we have assurances that the programs function as intended and there are no potential exploits, then it moves to mainnet. So we
Yeah,
take
I love that. That's very robust. That's like a triple check.
it obviously this extends timelines a little bit for us to get all of that functionality properly in place, but we think that the upside of doing so, or rather the risk of the downside, is so significant that it's worth taking that avenue. Now, in terms of gameplay risk, though, we also have quite a unique concept that we came up with all the way back at inception, and we call it play for keys. This is reference to cryptographic keys, but in effect, as you navigate into the riskier areas of space, the consequences are greater. So the medium risk zone, losing in an engagement would lead to your ship being destroyed, although respawnable, but you would have to pay a fee and might take some time where it's locked up to be usable again. You can also pay a fee to shorten that time, but otherwise think of it as the time it takes to repair and recover your ship. Now, when you go into deep space, though, the high risk zone, and this is all conceptual right now, we don't have this implemented, but when you go into the deep space zone, what happens is your assets would actually be locked into an escrow account, and should that ship get destroyed, it is permanently destroyed. It is removed from the game. Now, some of the materials and resources from that would be recoverable by the victor, but otherwise, this is putting it all on the line. So it's kind of racing for pink sheets here with your cryptographic assets. However, with that said, the pros have to be commensurate with the cons, and so all of the best resources, all of the most valuable loot, all of the rarest materials in the game, those all exist in the high risk zone.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and frankly, it's a type of risk-focused gameplay that I'm always excited about. Obviously, we've seen the rise of extraction shooters, which are in some way, risk spectrum structures. So, with respect to types of players that are going to enter the game, you will obviously have free-to-play players. You will also have pay-to-play players. How will they interact, and how will their experience differ inside the game?
I think by and large, we're still thinking through how that will work. Just to be perfectly honest with you, we're big advocates for the asset ownership. We think this is one of the most substantial benefits of operating on chain is this true asset ownership with a free market structure where you can buy and sell these at will. In fact, one of the first applications we developed was our own on-chain marketplace program, originally built using Serum, which is a central limit order book protocol that was built on Solana, used a lot by decentralized exchanges. But we've since converted that to our own in-house logic and code exclusively. So um, we believe in the true asset ownership potential of this, but we also understand that the product that we're building is intended for a mainstream audience, and the path and friction and obstacles to onboarding are still substantial right now. And so how do we overcome that? Well, it's finding methods where users can. I was actually just talking with the other co-founders in a leadership call this morning about this, but is there a way that we can leverage, say, the subscription model where you can pay a monthly fee and you can get access to assets? And we would have to think through the economics of that to determine to what extent are they able to realize or materialize the benefits of their gameplay while keeping, again, the rewards commensurate with the amount of risk that they're taking. If somebody is purchasing a large ticket item in Star Atlas, which some people call this crazy, but we have ships that are for sale for $110,000. Those all sold out. People bought those ships. Now, if someone is able to rent that same ship, to what extent should they be able to extract the same benefits as that person? Um, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest advocate for the narrative out there that is abstract away the blockchain entirely. Like, don't let people
Ah,
even
that's
know.
great. A very contrarian take right now. That's good.
It is. I mean, I'm just the ideology of blockchain and decentralization and censorship resistance is very much ingrained in me. And I think that there are enormous benefits to teaching people of this philosophy over time. And if all we're doing is creating a product that replicates what we've seen historically and abstracts away all of the other tangential benefits, then we're doing a disservice to that user base. So it's, on one hand, it's like from the business perspective, it's a terrible idea. Just make it as easy as possible. But on the other hand, I think that there's real advantages to doing it in the long term. And so we have to figure out how to reconcile that over time. And of course, we want it to be a simple process, right? We want people to be easily be able to get in. So other things we're looking at are, discussions with MoonPay, which is a service that allows you to easily purchase cryptocurrencies with like a credit or debit card, right? So how can we more rapidly set up a user's cryptocurrency wallet and fund that wallet and make the purchases necessary and gain access to the game? So we think a lot about these things, but at the same time, I also believe that the product that we're building is going to be something that people truly want to engage in. And in fact, I think this is why Web3 gaming is a big catalyst for the next level of adoption of blockchain itself, is we're creating a service and a product that entertains people. And they will be motivated to find their own path into that. Even if it comes with a bit more friction up front, they will pursue it because they want to engage. Again, and we have a bit of a responsibility to make that as simple as possible, but I think people will join the Web3 space simply because there's things that they want to do in that, and the utility of gaming is strong.
I have a huge amount of respect for the builders that like stick to their guns, and it's like we're gonna stick to full blockchain. There are very few games that are actually doing it, and a lot are. I've spent a lot of time advocating for abstract away the UX, right? Do the Web 2.5 thing, because I think it's easy to see that commercially it does make sense, right? But philosophically, I will be very excited to see like pure Web3 games really nail it, because I do think that it's obviously to the small niche of people that really believe in it, and to the broader niche that we hopefully can bring in, I think that there are quite a lot of positive outcomes here. With respect to the economy, because this is obviously something that always comes up, because you guys are such a multiplayer online experience, right? It's like a massive econ and political simulator almost. Chat through the econ itself real quick. I'm aware that you guys have 2 tokens deployed, right? What other in-game economic components, what levers are people going to be excited to pull as they play the game?
I would love to bring some of the guys from our econ team on the call to answer that question specifically. But my background's finance, not necessarily directly economics, but we've hired a team of extremely talented economists to specifically work through questions related to 3 categories of economics. So the first is game economics. The second is tokenomics, which is applicable to having the digital tokens available, both Atlas and Polis, and then also this. I don't know if anyone's really used the term. I think I've probably heard it out there, but metanomics or metaverse economics. And so, by and large, what I believe about the creation of Star Atlas is it is not the metaverse. It is an entry point. It's a gateway. It's an access point to this broader concept of a new immersive internet that people will find ways to participate in, whether that be through gaming or social or education or commerce. Um, and those are kind of the 3 categories that we focus on. And our our director of metaverse economics is thinking about very much in conventional terms of how do we define business cycles in say the real world. Well, how does that apply to the metaverse economics, and what types of businesses will be operating commercially inside Star Atlas that don't intend to play the game, but say if you're on a space station where there's commercial land, and you're Nike, and you want to sell shoes, you sell shoes digitally, but you also find a way to to deliver those to physical, to people's physical residence. I think that's the power of what we're building, and we're doing that through this cinematic immersive world. So from a kind of getting back to your question, from the gameplay economic standpoint, it is structured very much like a free market capitalist society. All of the things that you do, I would suggest that there is no guarantee, no guaranteed winning in Star Atlas. You do have to manage your operations. There are real hard costs to everything that you're doing. There is a system of taxation in the game, depending on where you operate, that generates income for the sub DAO system, or ultimately feeds all the way back up to the DAO. Now, the DAO is the decentralized autonomous organization. There's a Panaculum DAO, which is ecosystem wide. It can determine drastic changes to all aspects of the platform itself. And then there are the in-game mechanics with the political strategy, and again, kind of tying into territory control, where if you need security patrols through what we call the Council of Peace, the COP, if you need security patrols, well, the various kind of participants within that region of space will likely have to pay taxes to whatever the political body is there to pay for these NPCs to fly around in space and protect their area. But otherwise, it's really very much ground up operations of being able to extract resources and minerals from planets or celestial bodies, asteroids, and the like, refine those materials, convert those in through a crafting pattern into any item that exists in the game. So you can go through this construction and industry process to actually create the items that people are using. And again, all of those operations have hard fixed costs associated with them as well.
I really like these player-owned economic structures, which I think lend themselves very well to player ownership and blockchain themes in general. So I'm excited to see that roll out as you guys fully flesh out and deploy the economy. With respect to your guys' development cycle, has AI, impacted you guys at all in a positive or negative way? Are you guys leveraging certain tools? What's been your experience, as AI starts to become the buzzword du jour?
It probably not surprising, just given the the nature of our company operating at the bleeding edge as it does, that many people on the team internally are very excited about the prospects of AI. I mean, AI has been in video games for 30, 35 years, so it's not an entirely new concept for us to be leveraging AI in the game. Although, given the recent developments, specifically around like GPT and the like, we're looking into a lot of different potential use cases. And in fact, we formed an AI committee in the company to discuss all of the potential applications. But this is everything from, say, creating greater efficiency in the engineering department at being able to deploy code, first and foremost. It's setting up chatbots on our different front ends that people interact with, sort of a knowledge base. It's also um, thinking through art creation and modeling and how quickly we can develop new 3D assets to be used in game. And the one that I'm quite excited about is just the use of this next generation of AI NPCs in game to give players the sense of interacting with almost a real person, right? Even though it's AI. What I think is really cool, really compelling is and while we're not a social media site that are focused on user data collection, and we certainly want to ethically use any data that we collect, but you said yourself that we are effectively a political and economic simulator in many ways. I think the amount of data that is going to be captured and could be fed to an AI model is going to be enormous, because you have potentially millions or tens of millions of players, of users in this environment, taking real user actions, interacting with these NPCs and interacting with other players. That type of data could be fed right back into kind of a self-perpetuating AI model in the game. And so there's a lot of excitement. From my perspective, and this is unusual, I am the one that's actually probably the bottleneck in the process, because I just have some concerns given how rapidly everything is moving. Kind of going back to my original point around user security, to what extent do we leverage these today without fully understanding the consequences of using them? But again, there is a lot of excitement internally, and I think there's going to be some great applications of this going forward.
Yeah, I think that you and I align quite well on the NPC component. To me, at least, that is the most exciting piece, right? Like, we really bring a whole MMO world to life. What data from users can complement that, right? Like, as an NPC interacts with tons and tons of players, do you end up with new political parties that are autonomously running around your social and political experiment? Like, is that how it ends up panning out? I would be very excited to see that. So I'll certainly be keeping an eye on how you guys implement. Two final questions. One, what do you most excited about? What are you guys going to deploy? Is there any alpha here, as they say, kind of at the end? What should people be on the lookout for?
Yeah, we have some quite an exciting roadmap ahead of us for this year. We have two, potentially three major releases in our Unreal Engine client. One of them actually coming incredibly soon. It might be out depending on when this airs. um, but it's our R2.1. So this is the version 2.1 release candidate for our showroom. This is going to introduce 6 new ship models. It's going to introduce the full marketplace integration. It's going to include more character selection and customization. It also introduces what is going to be the first really replayable gameplay loop, in my opinion, and I think internally in our opinion, of Star Atlas, which is a competitive combat ground racing mode of play. Now, in this version, it is still more of a single player time trial mechanic, but going into our 2.2 release, which is coming a few months later, this is where we have the full combat racing. And combat racing, I've described and people seem to relate to, is Mario Kart on steroids. So thinking like Unreal Engine assets and stuff that looks hyper realistic, but you're navigating this race course against 7 other people. It's an 8-person race course, picking up shields, picking up weapons. You can throw that red shell at someone if they're too far ahead of you, and kind of disable them temporarily. So
To what degree are the assets destructible in that component?
So these are not destructible. It's more of a disabling mechanic, so it'll
Gotcha,
slow
gotcha.
somebody down, but it doesn't completely take them out of the race, and no permanent asset destruction, at least in this version. Although it would be not too difficult for someone to take this and run with it to a high risk version of these races, where if your ship is destroyed, it actually is destroyed. And that's, we didn't get into it too much, but I really think a lot about Star Atlas as more of a developer's platform than just a game. I think the game is it's the core attraction. It is the experience that will bring people to this new universe. But ultimately, the benefit of developing under our philosophy of on-chain game logic means that we have this permissionless and composable and extensible ecosystem. Anybody can build a decentralized application. Anybody can build a service or a product that integrates seamlessly into it, or otherwise you can build all kinds of businesses on top of that game logic and create benefit and value for our users. They can find a way to commercialize it, and we as a studio get the benefit of all of this innovation that we don't have to build, because we have such a massive undertaking to create this metaverse that there's simply no way we could do it in a reasonable time. We need to focus our attention on building the best experience possible. And once the users are there, you as a business or operator or an entrepreneur, well, you have a captive audience that wants your service potentially because it benefits their gameplay, right? So I think this is the exponential benefit of building in the fashion that we do. But again, our focus is on making sure we build the thing that really brings people to it. But so that's 2.2. There's something I can't share too much about just yet, although we have a press release coming out very soon. But it has to do with authoritative servers, so dedicated servers and multiplayer concurrency. We're not working with any of the players that people have probably heard of, the Immutables or the Hadians. We've actually identified an up and comer that is very promising and we're looking to break records this year in terms of user concurrency and single instance gameplay of multiplayer. And then later in the year, it's possible, although I won't commit to anything, but it's possible we have the second core loop, which is a really more of a PvP combat arena, and so it's big fleets of ships battling one another out in
Oh,
space.
incredible. Is that with multiplayer concurrency on that one?
That would be.
Awesome. All right. Well, really looking forward to it. Final question. A lot of people want to be game developers. A lot of people are curious about being a Web3 game developer. Do you have any final words of advice for people who want to follow in your footsteps?
Oh man, just do it. Take the leap. Web3 is the future. Web3 gaming is absolutely the future, in my opinion. I'm not. You heard my background. I'm not specifically a game developer. Fortunately, I've been able to surround myself with some brilliant, dedicated people who are very capable in executing. I think my job as the CEO is really just to make sure the ship is still moving in the right direction and hire the absolute best talent possible to perform in whatever their subject matter expertise is. And I feel again quite fortunate with the team that we've been able to develop here and people that believe in the vision that we've outlined in being able to execute. If you are a game developer, I would maybe close with this. This is a big initiative for us, is to recruit people specifically to build surrounding Star Atlas. And I mentioned kind of the decentralized applications that people could build, or these like services that tie into Star Atlas itself. But we believe in a future potential where people can leverage Star Atlas IP and build their own storylines, their own lore behind all of this. And in fact, just this year we created an IP program, an IP policy, the build program that allows people to use the Star Atlas IP for commercial purposes. They can earn up to $1 million in gross income and pay nothing on that. And then depending on the subsector or industry that the entrepreneur is operating in, there would be some royalty fee associated with revenue above 1 million. But, think of the idea of, we've already built all of these amazing assets in game. If you build a story that extends Star Atlas as a subplot, you can already leverage those assets. Maybe you can leverage some of our environments. Perhaps you can leverage some of the infrastructure that we've built as well. This Foundation SDK and other primitives that we're bringing online, our Web3 MMO game server that we developed from the ground up. So I would highly encourage anyone to reach out to us if they're interested in entering this space, and specifically interested in finding their own way to leverage all of the work and production that we've released in their own version of this game to further extend the reach of Star Atlas.
Awesome. Well, Michael, many thanks for coming on. This was actually a ton of fun. I'm personally very excited to see Star Atlas, continue to grow and evolve and kind of push the edges of what's possible using blockchain here. So thanks again.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate it.